Hello, and welcome to this roundup of childhood friends turned eventual partners in historical romance. I'm Olivia, your favorite resource for book recommendations you can easily screenshot. You're watching Random Olive Reads. The Devil in Her Bed by Kerrigan Byrne is book 3 of the Devil You Know series. We start with a tragic prologue here telling us about the Montclair massacre, where the entire household was slaughtered and burned. It seems that Pippa, the cook's daughter, has survived and now assumes the identity of Francesca, the new countess, and is seeking revenge. As she gets deeper into infiltrating her enemy's lair, she catches the attention of a spy, Chandler, who is also targeting the same enemy. Turns out that Chandler is her childhood friend who she loved and saved her, but he was in love with Francesca and believes her to be the one who has survived the massacre. It's a tangle of lust and secrets here, and slightly heartbreaking for the woman who's in love with her childhood friend. A Love by Design by Elizabeth Everett is book 3 of the Secret Scientists of London series. So, the previous book in the series hinted at a history between George and Margaret, and we get the full story here. George and Margaret, and Violet, who's the main character of the first book in the series, were childhood friends out in the country where George was not part of the aristocracy. One summer, when it seemed like a romance was developing between George and Margaret, heartbreak occurred instead, and we do finally read about what happened all those years ago. After they parted ways, George joined the army and somehow ended up an earl, while Margaret found an engineering mentor in Paris, got married, and became widowed. Now, Margaret is back in England to start her own engineering company and is undertaking a huge project. While George and Margaret are growing closer again, working out their heartbreaking past, Margaret's still holding secrets about her employer and funding and causing all sorts of discourse. And George ends up being the more emotionally mature and politically progressive one in this relationship, supporting Margaret's ambitions and providing her with comfort and humor and safety. A Beginner's Guide to Scandal by Olivia Fleur is book 1 of the Tales from Honeysuckle Street series. Childhood friends and neighbors Iris and Hamish are separated when Hamish suddenly becomes the heir to an earldom, losing his mother and older brother in a carriage accident. When Hamish returns to town 12 years later, he's been instructed by his father to find a suitable wife, but he plans to thwart his father's plans and create a scandal instead. Meanwhile, Iris has been helping with her father's merchant company, traveling the world and learning the business for the past decade. However, her father's mental state has been declining for many years, and Iris has been keeping it all a secret. As Hamish and Iris reunite, they have to deal with their heartbreak after he left, their differences in social station, and her need to stay proper so that the board of directors will approve of her joining the leadership of her father's company. It's a huge mass of competing interests, and Hamish is mostly an idiot throughout the book, but we have a nice found family with all of the neighbors on the street. Texas Legacy is the follow up novella to the Texas Trilogy by Lorraine Heath, and this one was actually published like 20 years after the original series and takes place about a decade after the epilogue of the third book. We have our next generation here. Faith is the daughter of Dallas and Cordelia, and Raleigh is the boy that they adopted. So these two have grown up together in the same house, which a little squicky to me, but let's ignore that and go with it. The text says explicitly that they've never had a sibling like affection for each other, but okay. When Faith is 19, she kisses Raleigh, but he's spooked and feels like he doesn't deserve her, so he runs off and he's gone for 6 years. He's finally called home and they have to deal with all their bottled up emotions. Aside from the adopted sibling thing, I really did like this novella and revisiting this big, important family. Never Met a Duke Like You by Amelie Howard is book 2 of the Taming of the Duke series. There's lots of banter and bickering here between Vesper, the daughter of a duke, and Aspen, the duke next door, and her former childhood friend. Somehow these two had a falling out when they were teenagers, they grew apart, and then Aspen spurned Vesper at her debut ball. Now it's many years later, Aspen has been off looking for fossils, and he's back in England to deal with his mother. Despite multiple offers of marriage, Vesper is still unwed and ruling society with her perfect poise. Aspen believes Vesper to be a spoiled society miss and tries to avoid her, even though he kind of needs her help in preparing his mother's ward for the season. Despite Vesper's outward appearance and reputation, she's still the same outspoken and fiery lady she's always been in the presence of her trusted friends. There's a lot of push and pull between Aspen and Vesper as they fight and kiss and push each other away. The Baker and the Bookmaker by Allie Hudson is book two of the Most Imprudent Matches series. Augie and Anna have been lifelong childhood friends as their parents served in a Viscount's household. This book pretty much covers their friendship and relationship over many years and is told exclusively from Augie's point of view. Even though Augie has been in love with Anna from the very beginning, he never quite makes a move for various reasons. At first, thinking that Anna would prefer their friend Michael, and then he's traveling to London to support Michael's endeavors, and then when they finally get to see each other again after many years apart, Augie finally realizes the opportunity in front of him and makes an earnest effort at courting Anna. This book was low on the drama, but still entertaining, and gives a lot of backstory to book one of the series. Once and Again with the Viscount by Andy James is book three of the Reluctant Lord series. Angeline is a widow who is slowly re entering society after mourning her beloved husband. She's been struggling with seeing her friends get married and have children, as she was unable to have any children of her own in the time that she was married. Meanwhile, her neighbor, childhood crush, and brother's best friend, Sydney, is around to notice her and offer her comfort. Sydney has been in love with Angeline after he notices her in a new light during her debut, but he lost out on the chance to be with her when he left society when his father died. And then he came back to find out she was already married. Now that she's widowed, Sydney has a second chance to woo Angeline, but there's tons of tragedy up ahead as Sydney's older brother unexpectedly passes away, leaving Sydney as the next Viscount. Angeline is even more distressed about her inability to have children because of this. There's a lot of angsty emotional upheaval to get through before these two can find a happy ending. 6 Degrees of Scandal by Caroline Linden is book four of the Scandalous series. This book starts with a heartbreaking prologue where Olivia and James meet when they're young, they're nearly engaged, and then Olivia is married off to somebody else in exchange for money for her father's debts. 10 years later, Olivia is widowed. She's being pursued by one of her late husband's sketchy associates looking for smuggled treasure, and Olivia flees London to investigate a lead. She is pretty quickly caught up by James, who vows to assist her and secure her safety. He's been feeling guilty and regretful ever since he missed his chance to marry her all those years ago. So we get these two partnering up to solve the mystery that her late husband left behind and rekindling their lost love. Gentleman Jim by Mimi Matthews is book two of the Somerset Story series. Childhood friends Nicholas and Maggie are separated when Nicholas is accused of a crime and she helps him escape. 10 years later, Maggie is in London for the season after an illness and mourning her father and her aunt when a handsome new Viscount to town is paying her court. It doesn't take long for Maggie to suspect that the handsome Viscount is really her childhood friend Nicholas in a new identity and persona. Both have their money and property at stake if they continue their association, but can't seem to stay away from each other. It's also interesting to watch them uncover the mysteries of the past and explanations of where Nicholas has been this whole time. Not the Duke You Marry by Jess Michaels is book three of the Kent's Row Duchesses series. So, with both of her widow friends married now, Bernadette is feeling lonely and undesirable. She expresses her interest in finding a lover to Theo, a childhood friend who she recently reconnected with. His shocked reaction makes her feel horribly rejected and insecure, but she rallies and she finds her way to a pleasure club. When Theo sees her there, he tries to emphasize how dangerous her actions are, but really he just lusts after her himself and is conflicted about his feelings. These two go back and forth a bit, but end up having an affair and try really, really hard not to fall in love. The Heiress Hunt by Joanna Shoup is book one of the Fifth Avenue Rebels series. Harrison Archer is back in town after living in Paris for the past 3 years. His horrible family is broke, and he's intent on finalizing their financial ruin. While they want him to marry an heiress to pay off their debts, he only has eyes for his childhood friend Maddie, who broke his heart years ago by declaring that she only thinks of him as a friend or a brother. With the time apart, he's hoping that she will change the way that she sees him. Now, I'm a total sucker for the emotional gut wrench of rejection, even though Maddie had no idea she was the cause of Harrison's departure. So now Maddie's trying to help Harrison find a bride, even though he just wanted to find an excuse to stay close to her. And she's kind of almost engaged to a duke. There's messiness all around. And Maddie was incredibly stubborn in this book and totally oblivious to the fact that Harrison has loved her for all these years, even though everyone else in their friend group totally knew it. This was a great setup for all of the other characters that will feature in the remainder of the series. Snowed In with the Scoundrel by Kat Sterling is a standalone novella that takes place in the Cascade Mountains of Washington State. Tommy is a bookseller and book thief running away from trouble and stumbles upon a warm and comfy cabin in the mountains. Imogen has been living in that cabin ever since she was rejected by her fiance, and her photography was judged as mediocre. She is surprised to find Tommy there, and it turns out they were childhood friends who were separated by circumstance. Even though she insists that he leave, Tommy is stuck there with a series of snowstorms. These two slowly rekindle their friendship and attraction to each other in this very quick read. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you found a book or two to add to your TBR. Links to all of these books are in the description box. Like and subscribe to get updates, and you can follow me on Instagram at randomolive.